Alright, so it's been a month and I've been using the iPhone XS Max exclusively as my daily driver for the sake of this review. And let's just cut to the chase, enough with the chit chat. Today I'm here to answer the overarching question: is this conglomeration of metal, glass, and silicon that is the iPhone XS and XS Max worth a whopping $1,100? This is going to be sort of a longer video. There's a lot of analysis, so I recommend you stick around and just kind of watch through so you get a proper understanding of what this phone is like to own and whether or not it's worth it to you. I will be answering this question towards the end of the video, so like I said, stick around to find out. So although you may not currently think or may never think the iPhone XS Max has a justifiable price point, I'm here to tell you that the phone does feel like $1,000. The sandwich of stainless steel in between glass feels incredibly solid in the hand and just looks gorgeous. I mean, there really isn't much to say. Apple leads the industry in regard to build quality, and the iPhone XS and XS Max set that standard of quality. I mean, these phones are built really, really nicely. Oh, and two other details before I forget to mention. The phone has IP68 water and dust resistance, so God forbid you're irresponsible with your $1,000 phone or get caught in the rain or a desert, it should be fine. And secondly, this phone sports incredible stereo speakers. They're not quite the best in the industry apparently, with its rivals being the Pixel 3 and the Razer Phone 2, but dang, they sound pretty bassy, pretty loud, and they're crystal clear for a smartphone. So the display on this phone is arguably one of the best in the industry in regard to color, contrast, resolution, and form factor. It's 6.5 inches diagonally, it's OLED, and sports a resolution of, I'm sorry, it's weird, 2688 by 1242. That roughly translates to a PPI of 458, which basically means it's really hard to see individual pixels on this display, even if you hold the phone right up to your face. The display also features True Tone technology, which is a great feature. It kind of warms the display tone or cools it depending on the color temperature of the room. It also supports HDR content and the famous 3D touch, which by the way is a very underrated feature. It creates a very nice level of immersion into iOS, and I thoroughly enjoy it on a day-to-day basis. This display is incredible for consuming content, especially on YouTube, which according to Screen Time, I do about 1.5 hours a day. And the way it covers the front glass almost entirely, with the exception of the notch, is really incredible, especially how it stretches down towards the bottom and maintains very thin bezels. It almost feels like you're holding the iOS experience right in the palm of your hand. And referring back to the notch, I mean, we live in a notch-filled smartphone world. Even after coming from the OnePlus 6, which sports a smaller notch, the one on the XS Max is totally tolerable, especially considering the tech that it packs. And speaking of which, Face ID 2nd generation is excellent for what it is. It's not my favorite method of unlock, but 8 to 9 times out of 10, it works the way it should. I mean, it's not the most convenient in some situations, but once again, it's quick, it's accurate, and it's secure most importantly. In regard to battery, the most boring aspect of this phone, it's not as well performing as the bigger 4,000 plus milliamp-hour batteries found in other Android smartphones. But trust me when I say this, I can get through an entire day, no problem. And that's from like 6 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. That's like an 18-hour day during like the school week. And I use my phone on average, sadly, according to Screen Time, like 4 hours a day. Sometimes on weekends, like 5 hours, you know. That's like watching a lot of YouTube, you know, heavy usage. So it should never be a problem for you to get through an entire day and then some, especially if you use the phone moderately. I charge at night, and in regard to ChargeGate, I've experienced it sort of a couple times, not the biggest deal. Just make sure your phone is charging, and that issue should be fixed with software anyway. I have not used wireless charging yet, but that's another great feature of this phone. You can just put it on a pad, you know, and it's already charging, no cables involved. So that's a convenience there. And yeah, overall, once again, great performing battery, should get you through a day and then some depending on your usage. You know, for $1,000, you should be entitled to an incredible camera setup. And thankfully that is the case. Otherwise, I would have already had a word with Mr. Tim Cook. Most of all the photos that I've taken have turned out properly exposed with great sharpness, great dynamic range, and have a fairly true-to-life color tone. that is slightly saturated, a little more so than the previous generations. Low light is also pretty decent. I've taken a few shots in like my very dimly lit living room, and the shots came out fairly sharp with minimal noise, so that's a good sign, I would say. Now, I'm sure the Pixel does a better job in a lot of different aspects in regard to dynamic range, sharpness, low light or night performance. But keep in mind that is the central, selling point of that phone beyond stock Android. The camera is one of the best in the business. But even so, the iPhone XS Max is no slouch and keeps up with the Pixel, especially with the portrait mode, which I wouldn't say is as good as the Pixel's, but is nearly as good. And most of the time it works out. If and when it does, I mean, it's not always perfect, it might not cover, bits and pieces here and there, but when it does do its magic properly, the result is fantastic. I'm also a huge fan of the editing tools available in the photos and camera apps, especially the virtual aperture toggle, which allows you to really tweak your portrait photos to make them look exactly the way you want them to, as well as the studio lighting you can toggle. Those look really nice as well. And then there's the fine toggles you can make with like contrast and brightness and saturation. These toggles are great when you just want to edit a photo in a pinch without having to open up an app like Visco or Lightroom. It's great to see native tools getting better and better. Video is a similar story, especially at 4K 60. It has great dynamic range, great image quality, sharpness. The autofocus and optical image stabilization are fantastic. And now we have stereo audio recording, which is great, I guess. So not gonna lie, I was a little hesitant switching back to iOS from my OnePlus 6 in fear of poor RAM management and just slower overall animations that might take away from the experience. And yeah, I'll be upfront with you, my OnePlus 6 is quicker when it comes to a lot of everyday tasks like opening up apps, loading web pages, and just RAM management in general, multitasking with its massive 8 gigabytes of RAM. But I mean, that's understandable because OnePlus markets their phone around blazingly quick performance. They really do a fantastic job optimizing the hell out of Oxygen OS to run really well with the hardware on this phone. On the other hand, iPhone, although its A12 is more powerful than the Snapdragon 845 found in the OnePlus 6, is designed to be a more fluid, easygoing, animation-centric experience. Speaking of animations, the swipe-based interface is really great. It's one of the reasons why I switched back to iPhone, and I think it's deliciously smooth, and it's just a really fun way to interact with the iPhone. Bringing up multitasking again, it's a non-issue with the iPhone XS Max. Although it's not as great as it is with the OnePlus 6 with its massive amount of RAM, pretty much desktop spec, 8 gigabytes. It's very nice here. Most of your apps stay open. You have very few reloads, although I do wish the iPhone XS and XS Max packed more than 4 gigabytes of RAM. iPhone XS and XS Max are still kings when it comes to smartphone gaming. the incredibly powerful A12 really slays loading times and frame rates. Throw any title at it, whether it's very 2D, not very graphically intense, to very graphically intense. The phones, or in this case the XS Max, should handle it no problem. Alright, so it's like 1 a.m. right now. My eyes are starting to close, and this is going to be like the longest wrap up of any video that I've ever made. So just stick with me. I promise it'll be worth it. I will answer the big question as best as I possibly can. And that is the iPhone XS, and in this case the XS Max, worth all this money, $1,000 and up? And before I even begin to answer the question, I just want to preface it by saying that I'm buying this phone myself. No one bought it for me. No one sent it to me. This is all on me. I don't make a ton of money. YouTube, as of right now, is similar to like a low-paying minimum wage job. Working maybe 10 hours a week. I have enough money to pay for gas. I have enough money to pay for some food here and there, and then I have some money left over, which I decided to allocate towards this. And by the way, I didn't buy this phone outright. I am financing it. I put $200 down, and I'm financing it for 30 months at $30 a month. And I hopefully will get a better job, or a secondary job, in conjunction with YouTube, so I can have a higher regular income, so I could possibly pay off this phone before September of next year, so I can sell it and buy a new phone and review it. The cycle continues. So, with all that said, is the iPhone XS Max worth $1,100? And to you, I say, it depends. And I know that's not a satisfactory answer for a lot of you guys. A lot of you want a yes or a no, but it really depends on what kind of person you are. And I might be the first one to say this, but money isn't just the primary issue here. And maybe you're thinking like, what the f? Yes, it is. Like, it's $1,000. You know, why would you spend $1,000 on a phone? But then to you, I say, like, why do people, you know, this is a little analogy here. Why do people buy sports cars? Why do people buy luxury cars? You know, like BMW, Mercedes. People buy them because they can get you from A to B, you know, just like any other car can, like a Honda or a Ford or a Chevy. But these luxury vehicles do so and then some. So if you care about your tech experience, whether you have a very basic understanding of consumer tech or a very complex understanding of it, if you want the best iPhone experience as of right now, then maybe sacrificing $30, $40 a month or $1,100 up front might be worth it to you in the long run. I mean, this is a device you will use every day for multiple hours a day. And I mean, at the end of the day, this machine, this computer, you know, it's not just a phone, it's a computer, is very high quality and delivers a very top-notch premium experience. So if you are willing to pay for that then some, then buy the XS Max. Although I wouldn't recommend it if you have an iPhone 8, 8 Plus, or 10. I'd only do so if you're rocking like a 6, a 6S, or a 7. On the other hand, if you're not super worried about having the best performing iPhone with the best camera, with the best battery, with the best design, with the most premium features, then the iPhone 6S, 6S Plus, 7 Plus, and you know, I would say at maximum iPhone 8 should be good enough for you, and you know, you shouldn't upgrade anytime soon. And if you absolutely need the bigger display, as much as I hate to say this, the iPhone XR should do the trick. So once again, to reiterate and to conclude, you have to determine whether or not the iPhone XS's premium features are worth the premium price. And you know, before you make any prejudgments, before you look at it on the website and go like, oh my god, like that's $1,000, like I did when I first saw it come out, go to the store, use it in person, sit there like a weirdo for a half an hour, hog the iPhone XS or the XS Max, and then you'll know whether or not you want the phone, because otherwise you really can't know until you use it in person. It's like a test drive with a car. You will only know if you want a Mercedes or a BMW until you go see it in person and actually drive it. So this has been quite a video. My eyes are glazing over. I need to get some sleep. My camera battery is about to die. My internal battery, so to speak, is about to die. It's been great. It's been a long video. I hope I answered the big question to the best of my abilities. I'd love to discuss this in the comment section down below. Leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one. All right, I'm gonna just go to sleep now.